All right, now we're going to look at how to find the formula for our inverse function. Before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about possibly something that you've run into before, which is incorrect. And that is that in middle school and high school, teachers have a tendency to tell students that to find the inverse function, you need to switch x and y and then solve. That is not correct, okay? Because it's not what an inverse function is. So if we look at this picture, when we define an inverse function, our function goes from x to y, and our inverse function goes from y to x. So the input of this inverse is y, and its output is x. So if you switch x and y, you've lost your domain and range restrictions. Okay? And it also makes it really confusing in terms of what variable you're plugging in here. So here I'm plugging in the velocity to get the distance, and in the inverse I need to plug in the distance to get the velocity, right? So not only structurally are there some issues with switching the x and y, but there are also going to be issues when you look at word problems because those variables have meanings to them. So we do not switch the x and the y, and if you learned it that way, I'm really sorry, you're going to have to unlearn that. Instead, what we're going to do is remember that y is equal to f of x, and that x is equal to f inverse of y. So what we're going to do is just solve for x, and that's going to be our inverse function. So to do that, I'll subtract 2 from both sides, so I get y minus 2 is equal to 3x. And I'll divide both of those sides by 3, and so my inverse function, my f inverse of y, which is equal to x, is going to be y minus 2 over 3. So your inverse function should have y in that formula, if y it was the dependent variable originally. All right, let's do another one. So y is equal to x cubed plus 8. So I want to isolate that x cubed, so I'll subtract the 8 over. So get y minus 8 is x cubed. And then to get x by itself, I need to take the cube root of both sides. So I'm going to take both sides to the 1/3 power. I get x is equal to y minus 8 quantity raised to the 1/3 power. So this is my inverse function. And then one last one here. I have y is equal to 3x over 2x plus 1. So this looks a little gnarlier because I've got 2 x's floating around in here. What I'm going to do is start by getting rid of this fraction by multiplying this 2x plus 1 up. So I get y times 2x plus 1 is equal to 3x. 2xy plus y is equal to 3x. So I just distributed here. And then I need to, remember I'm solving for x. That's what our goal is here, is to solve for x. So I'm going to put all the pieces with x on one side and all the pieces that don't have x on the other side. So in other words, I'm going to keep this y here, and I'm going to subtract the 2xy over to the other side. All right, and then remember, we're solving for x, so I'm going to factor an x out of this side. So I have y is equal to x times 3 minus 2y. And then I'll finish it up by dividing that 3 minus 2y over. So my inverse function is x is equal to y over 3 minus 2y. All right, so there are our inverse functions.